ladies and gents, Ghost here, and today I'm going over some tips to help you guys fly the fighters in Battlefront. As I'm sure you've all heard by now, all the fighters in Battlefront are pickups, which means everybody, good or bad, is going to be flying these things. In the right hands though, they can be devastating to the enemy AT-AT, AT-STs and enemy fighters, so knowing how to keep them alive and being proficient is well worth it. So first of all, where do you find the pickups? They aren't random spawns, they're always in the same places, but change with each set of uplink stations as you progress through Walker Assault. Not only that, but the type of fighter available will be different too. So here's a handy spawn location map I found on the Reddit forums by a user named the Poleman1. Pretty handy stuff, so I'll leave a link to that down in the description. So first things first, the controls. In a regular aircraft, you'd have to roll and pitch up to bank in any particular direction, but in Battlefront, it's much easier than that. Move the mouse left and right and you bank left and right, move it up and down and you pitch up and down. Unfortunately, this makes it impossible to bind spacebar to pitch up since you'd be unable to alter your direction, so dogfighting can sometimes be a case of whoever has the larger mousepad wins. When it comes to vehicle sensitivity, the higher it is, the easier you'll be able to switch direction and dogfight, but on the flip side, the harder it'll be to aim at targets, especially on the ground. Personally, I find a nice middle ground is about 20% with a mouse DPI of 1600. Now if you're anything like me and keep hitting that spacebar by accident, I'd recommend unbinding the fire command from it first to avoid accidental overheating. W and S will increase or decrease your speed respectively, and A and D will strafe you left and right. Now I can't confirm this 100%, but I'm pretty sure that the faster you go, the more damage your primary weapon does. Although slow or fast, I found no problems taking out infantry on the ground, since the laser cannons have insane splash and damage. So I approach the fighters in Battlefront quite similar to Battlefield. As soon as you spawn in, you want to go after the enemy fighters. Vehicles in Battlefront are marked as red circles on your radar, and you can easily tell which ones are fighters since they'll be the ones moving extremely fast. Try and get behind them before they've noticed you spawned, and it doesn't take long to take them out. You will have to lead a considerable amount with the laser cannon since fighters in this game move so fast, but it shouldn't take long to get used to. An alternative weapon is your homing missile / torpedo / energy ball thing, depending on which fighter you're flying. Simply keep sight of an enemy and hold down right click to lock on, then hold the lock and fire away. Now when it comes to evading missiles, there are no countermeasures in this game, but luckily they can be dodged pretty effectively. You've got 3 evasive maneuvers which you can use on a timer. One is a barrel roll left, another to the right, and the third is like a 180 vertical loop, similar to an Immelmann. Although dodging missiles is totally possible without these maneuvers, usually pulling a 180 and heading straight towards the missile's origin point with the right timing will do the trick. The barrel roll maneuvers are also extremely useful in avoiding head-on rams with other fighters. Now aside from this, the fighters have different abilities depending on faction. The rebel fighters have a plasma shield that will absorb blaster fire, similar to the personal shield you can equip as infantry, and presumably it absorbs the energy-based projectile from Imperial fighters too. Although if it's anything like the personal shield, then any kinetic damage should go right through. The Empire, on the other hand, have a speed boost ability, handy for dogfighting and putting some distance between you and your opponent. Now speaking of dogfighting, I myself haven't been doing too badly. I like to loop in a diagonal fashion and switch direction whenever I pass by the enemy fighter. This usually confuses him enough to put me on his tail. Lowering your speed whilst turning will also help you out and put a smaller distance between you and the enemy fighter. So aside from the enemy fighters, there aren't that many other threats to you. Smart rockets can lock you up, but that's a rather rare event, so really, once the enemy fighters are down, you have free reign to strafe the battlefield. Now if you're playing as the rebels and the AT-ATs are vulnerable, now is your time to help out your team. You can do massive amounts of damage to them in a few strafes. Try to fire your laser cannons in bursts, so as not to overheat them and have to quit your strafe prematurely. Now if the AT-ATs have their shields up, you want to take out those pesky AT-STs. You can take these down in 2 or 3 strafes without much bother, and your team will surely thank you for it. Now if you don't have either of those targets, it's time to strafe the enemy infantry. Spotting them from a distance can be quite difficult, since they're all dressed in white and there's no spotting in this game like in Battlefield. However, you can see where your teammates are and where the objectives are, and based on that information, you can pretty much guess where you'll find enemy players. Just go slow until you manage to spot a group and then unleash hell. Honestly, the laser cannons do insane damage and have such a large splash area, you don't have to be a particularly good shot to rake in the kills. So just a couple of quick pointers here. Some people ask about first person. It just really isn't viable in the fighters for me. It's more about realism and showing off the lovely cockpit interiors than it is practical. But the screen space is just really bad in this mode, and your spatial awareness is even worse, so I would recommend flying in third person only. One more thing to bear in mind is that there are no vehicle repairs in this game, so whilst blaster fire will do small amounts of damage to you, that's irreversible damage that won't go away. It all adds up, and when you hit 0%, you've had it, so if you want to stay alive for long periods of time, you have to play it smart. Right, I think that's it. Hopefully you guys have learned a thing or two. Let me know how you've been getting on in the fighters, and also if you would like to see more Star Wars Battlefront from me on the channel. But until the next video guys, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.